Dad, you're slowing everything down. I sold the ranch. That's what my son said to me, standing right in my kitchen like he owned the place. No emotion, no hesitation, just business. I didn't yell, didn't even raise an eyebrow. I just looked at him. Then at the woman beside him, his wife, Brooke, arms folded like she'd been waiting for this moment. I smiled and said, "Oh, I sold something too." For a moment. I thought I misheard him, but the silence in the room told me everything I needed to know. "I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has reached. My name's Thomas Lane. I'm 67 years old, and I've been walking this land since I was 24. I don't run cattle the way I used to, but I still mend the fences myself. I know every slope on this property, every creek bend, every stubborn post hole that gives me grief when the frost comes in. This ranch isn't just dirt to me, it's a record of everything I've ever worked for, and everything I've ever loved. I built it with Martha. She was the one with the vision. Me. I was the one with the calloused hands and a busted-up truck. She saw the ranch before it existed, told me where the barn should go, where the porch would catch the best sunsets. She planted the peach trees herself, the same trees that still bloom out back every spring like clockwork. Even though she's been gone 5 years now, cancer took her, fast and unfair, after the funeral. It was quiet, too quiet. Colby came around for a while. I think he tried, in his way, but he was grieving, too. And it didn't take long before he stopped showing up. Next thing I knew, he was living in Austin, married to a woman named Brooke, tall, sharp, knows her wines and wears heels on gravel. I tried to be kind. You do that for your kid. You want to believe they've found someone who'll love them even if she doesn't know the first thing about turning a compost pile or closing a feed contract. Truth is, Colby started sounding more like her than me. He talked about modernizing, said things like return on investment and legacy optimization, words Martha and I never once needed to run this place. I let it slide. For a while. Then one night, a couple weeks before Martha passed, she took my hand. Her voice was weak, but her grip still had fire in it. "Tom," she said, "don't let Colby ruin what we built." I said I wouldn't. I promised her, and I meant it. Thing is, promises like that, they get heavy. Especially when you're alone. Especially when your son comes back years later, wearing a tailored suit and using words like liquidation. But I kept it. I kept that promise in a way nobody saw coming. And when Colby thought he'd outmaneuvered the old man with a broken hip and a busted knee, well, he forgot one thing. I may be slow, but I never stopped paying attention. It was a Thursday, just past noon, and the wind had picked up over the fields. I was in the shed, tightening a loose hinge, when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Didn't expect visitors. Most folks text these days, even the feed man. When I stepped out, Colby was already out of the car. He wasn't alone. Brooke climbed out from the passenger side, clutching a leather tote and that familiar glare she wore like makeup. I wiped my hands on a rag and nodded toward them. "Didn't know you were coming." Colby didn't smile, didn't even meet my eyes. Brooke spoke first. "Let's go inside." "Thomas, we've got some exciting news. Inside the kitchen." I poured coffee. Neither of them touched their cups. Then Colby pulled out a folder, slid it across the table like he was closing a deal. "The ranch has been sold," he said, flat as sheetrock. I blinked. "Come again." Brooke tapped her iPad, turned it toward me. There it was. Digital signatures. A development firm in Austin. Documents filed, Dates stamped. It's done, she said. The deal closes Monday. I stared at the screen. Couldn't feel my fingertips. I never signed off on anything. I muttered. Brooke leaned in. Almost gleeful. You did. Right after Martha passed, that packet we brought over for estate simplification, you gave Colby power of attorney. The memory hit like ice. That week was a fog, Martha's voice still echoing in the walls. My hands barely steady enough to tie my boots. I'd signed without looking. Colby finally spoke again. It's time to move on. Dad, you're not getting any younger, and this place, it's holding you back. Brooke crossed her arms. We're helping you. Freedom, Thomas. You just don't see it yet. I looked down at my boots. Dust from the barn clung to the edges, still damp from the morning dew. When's the flight, I asked. Brooke blinked, caught off guard. Tomorrow morning. Milan. Milan. I echoed. Nice time of year. She grinned. We thought so. Thought. I stood slowly, stretched my back like I always do after a long sit. Well, I said, setting my mug down with a soft clink. Then you'll need that money to land. Brooke's grin faltered. What? I gave a small smile. The kind Martha used to call my barn smirk. I suppose you'll figure it out soon enough. Colby stared at me, confused, but said nothing. Brooke's voice sharpened. What do you mean? I walked over to the window. The wind was rustling the wheat just beyond the fence line. My land. Still breathing. Still mine. For now, I mean, I said without turning. Sometimes folks sell the wrapping and think they've got the gift. The silence behind me was thick. You're bluffing, Brooke hissed. I finally turned and met her gaze. You're flying tomorrow, Packlight. Trust me. I could see it then, the first flicker of doubt in her perfectly drawn brows. Colby looked down at the papers, suddenly unsure. I didn't yell, didn't curse, just walked out the door. Let the screen slam shut behind me. Sometimes silence does the heavy lifting. That night, after they left, I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, just me and a pot of oversteeped tea. The thing is, it didn't hurt the way you might think. Not because I'm made of stone, Lord knows Martha could tell you I'm not, but because I saw it coming. 3 years ago, right after her funeral. I started noticing things. Little things at first. Colby stopped asking about the herd. Didn't want to learn how the water tables worked or why we rotated grazing the way we did. He just wanted numbers, revenue, margins, optimizing legacy assets. He called it. One afternoon, I caught him in the barn, on the phone with someone. He didn't know I was there. He said, Dad doesn't understand the value of what he's sitting on. He's stuck in 1985. The next day, I called Emily. My niece, smart as a whip, runs her own ag tech firm in Montana. Her dad, my brother, taught her the business young. Em, I said, I need your help setting up something airtight. I told her everything, told her how I wanted to protect what Martha and I built. Not just for pride, but for the people who depended on this place. We had hands who'd been with us since the 90s, families who raised their kids on Lane Ranch paychecks. Colby saw cows. I saw people. Emily didn't even blink. Let's call it Cedar Hollow LLC, she said. We'll shift everything valuable water rights, equipment patents, long-term supply contracts into it. You keep ownership. Quiet, legal, protected. We spent a full year building it out. Registered in Wyoming. Silent partner agreements. New trademarks. New distribution routes under a new name. The ranch was still here. Still had the fences and the barn and the Lane Ranch sign out front. But the engine, everything that made it valuable, was now mine. Legally, privately, locked tight. Colby never asked. He never noticed. He just assumed the ranch was what he saw from the porch. By the time Brooke came into the picture, it was already too late. She brought that polished smile. Started calling me Tom instead of Dad. She talked about moving me somewhere with fewer responsibilities, started pushing Colby toward more ambitious ventures. I saw her whispering to him during dinners, saw the way he started checking his phone instead of checking on me. The final nail was last Thanksgiving. They visited for 2 days. Brooke spent most of it complaining about the cold and asking if the house had smart lights. Colby stayed up late in the office, going through old tax files like he was already planning a future I wasn't invited to. So yes, when they sat in my living room and told me they'd sold the ranch, I wasn't surprised. What they didn't realize was that I'd already sold something too. I sold the illusion, the shell, the name on the mailbox. And I did it out of love, for Martha, for this land, even. Believe it or not, for Colby, because if he ever came to his senses, I wanted there to still be something real for him to come home to. They flew out the next morning. First class, direct to Milan. They posted a photo from the lounge Brooke in sunglasses, holding champagne, captioned to fresh starts and freedom. I saved it. You have to appreciate a good setup when you see one. By the time their flight landed, the wires were supposed to have cleared. Colby was expecting over $2 million in his account. His cards should have been ready to swipe. Reservations confirmed. Instead, I got the first call at 3:08 a.m. "Dad," Colby said. His voice was tight, controlled. The wire didn't go through. Something's wrong. "Oh, we checked the account. It's empty. There's nothing there." I took a long sip of tea. "That's strange." Brooke's voice cut in, sharp like broken glass. "We called the bank. They said the account was closed yesterday." "Closed? What does that even mean?" I leaned back in my chair. "I wouldn't know. I'm just a rancher. But maybe you should call your lawyer. You've got one of those now." "Right, Dad. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing." They went silent. I could hear their breathing, the kind of breathing that only happens when a plan starts to fall apart. "Tell me what's going on," Colby said. "I will," I said, "but not tonight. I'm old, and I've got irrigation checks in the morning." He started to protest, but I cut him off. "Sleep tight. Son, enjoy Italy. The weather's supposed to be lovely this time of year." And I hung up. Have you ever seen someone underestimated just because of age or gender? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear it. The call came just after dawn. I was sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee. Same as I did every morning. The sky was a pale stretch of gray blue, and the birds were already busy in the oak tree by the barn. That quiet, gentle hum of the land waking up. Familiar. Steady. Unlike what I was about to hear. My phone buzzed. I let it ring twice before answering. "I already knew who it was. Dad, something's wrong." Colby's voice shot out, sharp and breathless. "The money didn't go through. The Milan place. The cards, it's all frozen. The banker said something about an account review. What's happening?" I took a slow sip. "Let it settle. You sold the land." "Son," I said, soft and flat. "But you didn't sell the company." Silence. Then came the rustle of panic on the other end. "What company? Cedar Hollow LLC." I told him. "Set it up 3 years back with your cousin Emily. All the real assets, equipment, herd contracts, seed rights, even the Cedar Hollow brand have belonged to it ever since." There was a pause long enough to feel like snowfall. Then Brooke's voice burst through in the background. She was yelling, demanding. I could hear the scrape of her heels on tile. Then she took the phone. "What the hell is this?" she snapped. "You're not allowed to do this." I didn't flinch. No tricks, just planning. I said, "You came with paperwork." "So did I." Her tone turned legal real quick. "This is fraud. We'll sue. We'll take it all back." "You can try," I replied. She barked more deception. Breach. And something about malicious intent. But it was noise, just noise. When she paused, I said, "You remember those papers you had me sign after the funeral?" She didn't respond. They granted power of attorney for small transactions. Expired last May. You never renewed them. Colby came back on. His voice had shifted. Less anger, more fear. "So, it's all gone. It's all protected," I said. "Protected for who?" "For the ranch," I said. "And for someone who'll treat it like home, not a springboard." He was quiet again. "But I'm your son, and I'm your father," I said. Voice steady. "And I made a promise to your mother to protect what we built." That's exactly what I did. I heard one last angry shout behind him. Then the call disconnected. The wind shifted. The chimes on the porch rattled gently. I sat there a while longer, just watching the light move across the fields. Cedar Hollow stood quiet, untouched. Still hours. It was almost fall when he came back. I was out in the field, turning soil with the tiller, when I saw a car pull up the drive, dust kicking behind it like a tale of regret. Colby stepped out. His clothes were wrinkled. He hadn't shaved in days. His hair had grown wild around the ears, and he carried nothing but a duffel bag slung over one shoulder. I didn't wave, just kept working until he walked up close. "Hey," he said. I shut off the engine. The silence that followed said more than either of us could. He looked down at his boots. Brooke left, took her things, and flew back to Chicago. Said I ruined everything. I nodded once. Let him say it. I tried reaching out to some friends. No one's answering anymore. The guys from college. They're gone quiet. I waited. He shifted, cleared his throat. "I don't have a place to go." I wiped my brow with the back of my hand. "The guest room's $50 a night," I said. Flat. He blinked. "What? There's a cot, a sink, and no breakfast," I added, "and the windows need washing." He stood there, stunned, like he'd expected a hug or at least a lecture. But I didn't offer either. "You said you didn't need this place," I reminded him. "So if you want it now, you'll earn it." He nodded, quietly. "Okay." That night. He stayed in the old side room, the one behind the garage, with the uneven floorboards and a rattling vent that never got fixed. He didn't complain. In the morning. He was up before dawn. No words, just a sponge, a bucket, and the slow rhythm of windows being cleaned one by one over the next few weeks. Colby worked like a hired hand. He fixed a broken fence post without being asked, helped Emily restack the hay bales in the south barn when a storm rolled through. He ran out barefoot to cover the tractor, soaking wet and cursing under his breath. But he did it. We didn't talk much. I watched. There were moments when I saw glimpses, flickers of the boy I raised, the one who used to chase barn cats and fall asleep in the hayloft after chores. But that boy had been buried under pride, and I wasn't sure if he wanted to be found. One night in November, I caught him sitting in the tool shed, holding a rusted horseshoe we'd once nailed over the barn door. You remember this? He asked when he noticed me. I nodded. You told me it'd bring luck. I smiled faintly. Only if you hang it right side up. He held it carefully. Guess I had it upside down all these years. We stood in that quiet for a long while. A few days later, I slid a file across the table during breakfast. Inside were business reports, vendor contacts, and a login to the Cedar Hollow LLC account. I've got a conference call with the feed supplier at 10. I said, thought you might want to sit in. He looked up. Surprised. You sure know? I said honestly. But I'm willing. He came to the office that morning, buttoned his shirt, and sat beside me. He didn't speak during the call, just listened, nodded, scribbled notes. But I saw it. For the first time in a long time. He was paying attention, not to what he could take, but to how things were built. It was early winter by the time I brought out the file. We'd just finished stacking firewood near the east shed. Colby had dust on his jacket and splinters in his gloves. I told him to meet me in the den after supper. He sat down across from me at the old oak table, the one Martha used to polish every Sunday. I placed a manila folder between us. Thick, worn at the corners. I didn't say anything right away. He looked at it, then at me. What is it? He asked. Cautious. Something you need to hear. I said. He opened the folder. The first thing inside was a USB stick. I pointed toward the laptop already set up beside us. He plugged it in, and I clicked play. Brooke's voice came through the speakers, clear as a bell, a private conversation I'd recorded, back when I started getting that gut feeling something wasn't right. She was talking to a lawyer. Once it's in Colby's name, he won't ask questions. He still wants his dad to be proud. All I have to do is say it's for his future, and he'll sign. Colby flinched like someone slapped him. She said that he whispered. I nodded, quietly. He clicked on another file, emails. There was a trail of correspondence between Brooke and a development group in Texas. The deal had been underway for almost a year before he even knew about it. His name was on the signatures. His password was used. I watched him read in silence. Then I reached into the folder one more time and pulled out a small envelope. This one. This is from your mother, I said. His hands shook as he unfolded the paper. It was a voicemail I'd transcribed the day after she passed. Her voice was faint on the tape, but still steady. Tom. I know he might try. Don't let kindness cost us our home, not after everything we built. If he forgets, remind him who we are. Colby sat still. Then he lowered his head into his hands and cried. I didn't say a word. Just let it happen. Sometimes the truth doesn't need company, it just needs space to settle, after a long while. He looked up, red-eyed and hollow. She warned you, he said. She warned us. I corrected. He shook his head. I was so sure I was doing what was right. She told me Brooke had good ideas, that we needed change. And I thought maybe I could finally be the one who builds something. I leaned forward. You can't build anything real by tearing down the ones who taught you how. He nodded. Slowly. I don't know if I deserve to be here, he said. I looked him in the eye. Respect isn't something you inherit. I said, you earn it, every day. Same goes for forgiveness. He took a long breath. I want to earn it. I closed the folder. Then we'll start tomorrow. Sunrise. We've got fences to mend. He smiled faintly. a tired, humbled kind of smile. And for the first time in a long while, I saw my son not the man lost in pride or promises, but the boy who once helped me hammer planks on the porch in bare feet, just to say he'd done it with me. 6 months passed. The ranch was quieter now. Not empty, just steady. There was a rhythm to things again. Not the same rhythm Martha and I had shared, but a new one. One built on early mornings and second chances. Colby was up before the sun most days, wore jeans that had started to fray at the knees, and boots with honest dirt on them. He stopped using hair gel, started drinking his coffee black. The first time I saw him grease the tractor hitch without being asked, I didn't say anything, just watched from the porch with a mug in my hand and a tug in my chest. He wasn't flashy about the changes. He just stayed, did the work, asked questions, listened. Emily gave him a shot at Cedar Hollow. Our little LLC. Told him he could start by handling irrigation repairs and livestock vendor calls. He didn't flinch. Took the folder, nodded, and said, "I'll figure it out." And he did, day by day, spreadsheet by spreadsheet. One morning in early April, we were out by the well pump. Sun just starting to stretch over the hills. He had a wrench in one hand, a pressure gauge in the other. I leaned down, checked the reading. "All good," I said. He gave a half smile, wiped his brow with the back of his hand. There was sweat on his collar, not from a gym or a jog, but from something real, honest work. We sat on the tailgate after, passing the thermos back and forth. After a quiet minute, I said, "Your mom would have liked seeing you like this." He didn't answer right away, just looked out toward the pasture where the calves were starting to stir. Then, softly, he said, "I hope one day you'll say you're proud of me." I turned and looked at him. I already am. He didn't cry. He just nodded. But his hand gripped the thermos a little tighter. And I knew it landed. We didn't talk about the past much after that. Not because we were avoiding it, but because we were walking forward now. Step by step. Together. Colby started leaving his phone on the kitchen table during dinner. He started keeping a notebook in his back pocket, jotting down feed schedules, vendor quotes, names of local ranch hands he thought might be worth hiring. Sometimes I'd catch him standing in the barn, just listening, not rushing, just being present. He started asking about Martha, what she was like as a girl, how we met, what she planted in that small bed near the fence. I told him everything I could remember, and one evening, while we were setting up a new fence line, he said, "I didn't just let her down, did I?" I stopped tightening the wire, looked at him square. "You got lost," I said, "but you came back, and that's what counts." He nodded. Drove in the next nail without saying a word. That spring. The ranch didn't feel like it was mine or Martha's. It felt like it was ours again. Not in title, not in paper, but in the way the work got done and the way the porch light stayed on until everyone was home. It wasn't perfect. Life never is. But there was dignity in the way Colby showed up now. A kind of quiet redemption. And for an old man like me, that was more than enough. If this story reminded you of something from your life, something lost, something found, share it in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this one.